like in so many ways, it's a bit like the British Constitution. For the longest time, it was not written down, because as long as Rippon was there, he lived it, and we looked to him for that kind of guidance, But we lost Rippon in '94, and the organization was just 15 years old at that point in time. We're now more than 40. And I think what became vital at that time for us was to ensure that that which resided in Rippon and which he carried, we really took that out, and it became something that was held and shared across the organization, within each person. Each person was actually living it. I still remember, we had a memorial service after Rippon passed away, and I remember standing there, and I was doing the emceeing, and I remember feeling, oh my God, like the soul of the organization is gone, and how are we going to actually move forward? And 1 year later, we did a memorial service. Just one. It was the only year we did a memorial service after he passed away. And I was again emceeing, and I remember just looking out at the organization, and there were, all our Bombay. It was that time it was in Bombay, and the employees were there. And I remember looking at everybody, and there was this energy, there was this passion, there was this commitment, and I realized, it hadn't gone anywhere. It was right there, alive, and today every single person was carrying that. And I think that was also because we laid emphasis. In fact, Pooja is here, who's now our CEO, and in that time she was in HR. She was our first. I mean, Pooja was the first HR person, I think, in the development sector in this country, because she came in at that time when no development organization had HR. But we recognize that people that are really the heart. For us, there's no other resource really. We don't have manufacturing, nothing. We just have people who carry the vision, and so it was we poured a lot of time and energy into what we called institution building, which was really about how do you carry the mission, how is there alignment around the mission, how is there alignment around the values, how are we living those values, not just in our HR and how we interact with each other, but how are the values of the organization translating into our very strategy, into the organizational strategy, into what we're doing at the grassroots level, into how we're building, and what are the kind of relationships we're building with our partners, who are the ones who are actually reaching children. So we invested a lot in what we called institution building. And a lot of that was also doing deep internal work, inside out work, because we realized that transformation outside is only possible if you're willing to go through that transformation inside. So it is an inside out process. It is also understanding what it takes to change, what it takes to it's very easy to go out into the field to communities and say, you need to change, but we need to understand what it takes to actually change. So I think a lot of we invested a lot of time in that, in aligning, because people came from diverse backgrounds into CRY. And so it was important to find what was it that would hold us all together. And we realized it was those mission and values that really held us all together, that gave us that was the ground of our being, as it were, and that allowed us to, from there, be creative, from there, be innovative, from there, be bold, be courageous, and step out and do things that perhaps maybe we didn't think were possible, but really to be able to step out with that courage, you had to be anchored in the values. I remember many years after Rippon passed away, in fact, I went for a meeting we went to ICICI, and we were going to them for a big grant at that point, and we were meeting, I think it was Mr. Nachiket Moore. I think even Pooja was there at that meeting. And we were talking about what CRY had gone through, and talking about the fact that Rippon was not there anymore. And the interesting thing is, I think if I were to poll most people in this on this conversation, most people might know CRY, but a lot of people will not know Rippon. And in many ways, looking back, I recognize what an extraordinary gift that was to us as an organization. That he didn't take that credit for himself. He didn't put any spotlight on himself. He just shone the spotlight on the mission, on the organization, on the work, on children. And when Mr. Moore looked at our annual report, and he said, I'm absolutely astonished, because I'm looking at 1994, when you lost your founder, when most, especially NGOs, are so centered around their founder. And he said, all I can see is your trajectory is just going up. There's not even a blip there. So whatever happened to you happened internally. You all had to deal with the blow of losing your founder, but externally you continue to do the work. And I believe that's because of how Cry got structured around its mission, and that everybody, no matter what had happened to us, the one thing we knew we had to continue, the one direction we had, it was so clear for us, that we had to continue to do what we had to do, because there was this huge, and there continues to be this huge need as far as children are concerned. And I think that, like, when I look back, we celebrated 40 years a couple of years ago, and it was so beautiful because we did the history of Cry. And what was amazing for people like myself, who I call, I'm like now a dinosaur in Cry, literally. But you see the young people, some of them who were just there in that gathering, had been just in Cry for 3 months and 4 months, and yet there's this intangible spirit that has continued over those 40 years, that it's still you get it. It's the Cry spirit. I can't explain it with more clarity, I mean more words, but there's a Cry spirit that still continues. You walk into a Cry office, and it's completely different. We're doing completely different things from even when I was in Cry full time. We're a different organization. Pooja and Vatsala, who are here, will tell you what we're doing. And yet there's something that you can recognize from its essence, which was there from the beginning. And I think that is that intangible essence of who we are, and the values that are just lived and breathed, and are transmitted, in that interaction, in that interface that happens on a regular basis. Yes, now we have things written down. I think it's vital to have certain things written down, available for everybody, and also not just written down, but experienced and lived, so that we know what does it mean when we say justice, equality, dignity, and integrity. What does that mean for us? So it's really important. But I think all of that only means something when it's lived and breathed.